So we're going to transition genres big time.
Big
And
time.
this artist needs no introduction. The album really needs no introduction. Whether you like hip hop, rap, or not, this artist kind of transcended genres. And we're talking about Eminem. So the album is Marshall Mathers LP. Comes out in 2000. And, kind of, Tone, to take your approach, back up a little bit. So what happened before then? So he broke on to mainstream in like 98, 99. So Slim Shady LP comes out. He hits you with My Name Is, super catchy, poppy, a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor. Follows that up with Guilty Conscience, which that's when you knew he had the Dr. Dre backing.
Yep.
That whole Dr. Dre endorsement. So instant credibility. So that comes out, big success. And after that, before Marshall Mathers comes out, he has that feature on Dre's What Forgot About Dre that was on Chronic 2001, which came out ironically in 99. And I think he smoked Dre on that song, M's verse. Totally smoked him. So this is all leading up to the major label sophomore album. So I know he had that Infinite. Was it Infinite?
Infinite. Yep.
Infinite. So as far as major label, this was his sophomore album. So channeling back to Greg Bergdorf from Zebrahead, episode 9 or whatever it was, you have your whole life to put out your debut, but you only have a year to put out your follow-up in the album after that.
Yep.
So this is a lot of pressure, a lot of pressure. So he drops Marshall Mathers LP in 2000. So a couple kind of personal memories for me. We were freshmen in high school. It was second half of that year. Of the school year. It was in the spring, and I remember listening to this on my Discman.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically being, it was after gym class and just having the headphones in, and I bought it the day of. It was one of those Slim Shady, real Slim Shady. I love that song on the radio. I need that album. And that's when albums dropped on Tuesdays. So if you're an OG, you know that dropped on a Tuesday. So I remember doing that. And then also that summer, I played summer baseball. So senior league baseball, 13, 14-year-old team. And we did the summer league. I think we won the state tournament. And we're traveling down to like Vermont, New Jersey to do regional tournaments. And all my teammates' parents drove us. So one of my friends' dads had a minivan. So there were like 6 of us, 13, 14-year-olds in a minivan. And what was the soundtrack that whole trip was Marshall Mathers LP. And I remember specifically my buddy's dad being like, what the hell is this? Like questioning if he should even let us listen to it. Like, I mean, if
he should have been questioning it.
If you know, you know, like So I remember even as a 14-year-old, you knew how ridiculous the album was. So that's some early memories. So a couple comments, then I'll open it up here. But I would say my reaction to the album, objectively, it's a classic. It's a classic album for any genre. For in genre, I would say it's a near masterpiece. I don't think it is because of a couple things. There's 2 songs that I always skip. Always skip. And it's been like this since the day I bought it. Remember Me, the one with Sticky Fingers from Onyx.
Yep.
Skip that back then. I skip it now. And obviously Kim. Like, I'm not going to listen to that.
Kim is a tough hang.
I'll say this. The first time I listened to Kim all the way through was like pretty recently. Like I always just skipped it. And if you know, you know. And then the other thing is near masterpiece is the lyrical content. As a 14-year-old, you think it's, funny and whatever. As a 34-year-old, it's like, I don't know if I need to listen to this,
Yeah. Yep.
But that's just a couple thoughts. For him, it transcends the genre. He was all over the Anger Management Tour, Warped Tour, early days. He was on TRL, MTV. I mean, he was huge.
Mm-hmm. The memories I have, Twan, you just kind of opened up the memory bank in terms of when I was first listening to this album, and it was on the way to Sunday River to ski. The school had a program, the rec program, where you'd buy like kind of a season pass type thing to ski through the school, and they'd provide transportation. and it'd be every Sunday in the winter. And someone had this album, and I listened to it, and I was like, just like floored, because I was like, was into some hip hop, but I was mostly into the albums that we had referenced in other episodes, like the Free Willy soundtrack and Nirvana Unplugged. So like, this was kind of like new territory for me, and I was like, wow, this is like it just seemed like, especially with the skits and stuff, that I was like just listening to some kind of like comedy album sometimes. I was like, what is this? This just, it doesn't really make any sense. But it was intriguing at the same time because his voice is so like unique. He's got this, especially that album, he's got a very like young,
whiny
like parody thing going on, but it makes his own little sounds for the segments or in the song bits, like making the sound of a chainsaw and stuff like that. Yeah. And I was like, this is like really like weird, man, but I like it for sure. But that was the first time I heard it, and then I did the same thing. I went and bought it, and it was well advertised. You know, it was a lot of money spent, trade spend on making this album what it was, but well deserved, because it is an iconic album, and the content and the time and place. There's no other time that this album could have come out. If it was earlier, it wouldn't have worked. If it was later, it would have been too late. Yeah, it was like the exact perfect time, infrastructure wise, album wise, him as a person, like. It's an album that just kind of blows me away.
So, talking about early Eminem, in '98, we were on I think we're in middle school, 8th grade, Washington D.C. trip, and I remember Slim Shady LP and just listening to that on the bus and being like, I shouldn't be. I know I'm 13, I should not be listening to this. Like, my parents would not understand why. They'd like be like, what are you doing? But like that's what we had. Like that was one of those. That was part of the appeal for our, he kind of hit something for our age, our group of friends, our time period as preteen, teen into high school type of stuff, where he knew how to find us, and not that we agreed with what he was doing, but we were like, okay, he's taboo, I'm gonna listen to him, and he played that up to a T on those first 2 albums. Yeah. To the point where you're right, Twan. There's songs that I will not listen to. I listened to Kim all the way through for the first time in probably ever as well the other night in prep for this, and I was like, this is hard to do. I'm not telling people to go listen to it, because the rest of the album has some pretty solid bangers on it, and lyrically he's as good as anybody at this point. What's funny? I just looked through the track listing of this album, and then Eminem Show, which came out a couple days ago, 18 years ago. Wow. So much more mature. Like there's and that album I did what you did, Twan. I put it on my Discman and I didn't turn it off, and I walked around school. I was in the middle of class listening to it. I was a decent student, so no one gave me shit. But yeah, those songs don't have what some of these songs have. But at the same time, there's some really masterful songs on this record, and that's why it's pretty damn close to a front to back. Drug Ballad, amazing. Yeah. Just an amazing. It's a dance song like he had on Slim Shady with what's the name of it? It's middle of the album, similar to this one, and this song is just perfect. Like as far as a Slim Shady Eminem song goes, and Criminal. I mean, you can't.
And that's the album closer, Criminal.
Yeah, and you can't beat the lyricism on that record or that song. It's just perfect. And there's some stuff in there that's really not great, but it's an awesome song. Like he just does, it's just Eminem being Eminem and pushing the buttons that you want pushed. And then Stan was obviously huge, right? Stan was just a big song, and still would to this day made Dido. It turned Dido into a thing. Like without Stan, there's no Dido. So yeah, it hit me again hearing it for the first time in quite a while. The guy was obviously, he still is very talented. He's still doing stuff today. So one of the better lyricists we'll ever hear.
Nate, you mentioned something I wanted to bring up, which was earlier today, I thought to myself, if this album came out today, how would I like it? And my immediate thought was, it couldn't come out today. Exactly what you were saying. He nailed the time and the place. So then I flipped that around and said, well, what if I was 34 when this came out back in 2000? It would not have the same impact. And it gets down to, like you said, he scratched that itch, that taboo itch that you have when you're 14, 15, whatever it was. The stars aligned. And I still do come back to this album for select songs. Criminal, he still does that live. I saw him last year. He still does Criminal. He still does obviously Real Slim Shady. He does The Way I Am. He does Stan. There's a few others he'll still play. But yeah, I have a couple factoids if you guys want to hear them on this album.
Absolutely.
So one of them is, well, actually, one of them is a little story from the label. So you remember with Greg from Zebrahead from Channeling a couple episodes ago, the record label said, hey, we want a Sugar Ray Fly, right? We want the big single. So for this album, when they were in the studio, Eminem finishes recording, and the label says, hey, we need a single. There's no single we can work with. So guess what song he comes back with initially?
Stan.
He comes back
with
The Way I Am, which is a middle finger to like being a celeb.
All of it, yeah.
So that's a total Eminem move. And then if you think back to the CD, the skit that's leading up to The Way I Am is the Steve Berman skit,
which is a great skit.
Which is a great skit where he's basically like, fix this or it's not coming out. And then it leads into The Way I Am. And then he comes back to the label after that, and then he gives him the Real Slim Shady.
Yep.
So that's one factoid. The other one is it went diamond. It actually sold 11 million albums in the U.S. And the other cool thing I saw just in doing some prep for this was it actually went gold on its own in the first 4 weeks of the album. So in the first week, it sold 1.8. Second week, 800,000. Third, 600,000, and then the fourth, just over 500,000.
Jeez, that was back when albums did that, right? I mean, that will not happen again. That was a time when that could happen. It won't happen again.
Drake couldn't do it. Adele couldn't do that. I mean, those are the ones that would come close. Not even close, like the close for the time, closest for the time.
If they were big back then, yes. I think a piece of this and the reason he was as popular as he was he was kind of the anti-boy band at the time, and the anti-Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera stuff. So there was nu metal, there was boy band / girl band, and then there was Eminem. And Eminem was the only thing like Eminem, and he was just shitting on all of that other stuff. So to have him be the voice of, I don't want this, I don't want that, you're going to have me, obviously made him a big deal, right?
Yeah.
I've never heard it like that, and that's really cool perspective because he essentially had a monopoly on his style and that genre to an extent. Wow, that's a really cool point, Tone.
And it's to be said, the lyrics of his songs were to provoke and they were obviously over the top and a little bit intense at times, but they weren't him. I don't think they were to kind of provoke everybody and to make everybody feel a little uncomfortable in their chair, right? That's what they wanted. They wanted you to be like, oh God, he said that. Oh my God, he's making fun of gay people. And then he's friends with Elton John and does Stand with Elton John. Like he's obviously not that guy. He's just doing his thing.
Yeah, and three personalities. 3 personalities with Marshall Mathers, Eminem, and Slim Shady. So we can kind of like ping pong between 3 different like personas per se. I mean, it's the same person, but yeah. Wow, man.
And that's why I get back to like, if I was 34 back then, I would have been able to see through that. I would have been able to understand it was all for a rise to some extent. But last trivia question, then we can move on to yours, Nate. What was the first song he recorded for this album?
Give me a hint.
It'll give it away.
Okay. Shit. Bitch Please 2. That's actually, I think it's in the next one.
No, it's on that one. It's on that one. Kim was the first.
Really?
Oh God.
Yes.
Well, I mean, 07 Bonnie and Clyde, or what? 03 Bonnie and Clyde will do that to you, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. But I would say still a classic album. So I'll ask the same question. Does it hold up 20 years later? My answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree. And I also agree with the fact that I skipped those tracks. I did it then, I do it now.
Yep.
And if it wasn't for those 2 tracks, it would be a front to back. And I guess it is a front to back in terms of what those songs represent as an album flow, because he was psychopathic and Kim is essentially a song about murdering. And and so they kind of make sense in terms of an album flow, but they are kind of skippable tracks because they're either too hard to listen to?
Well,
or
yeah, and if you listen to the next album, The Eminem Show, I think the song about having trouble with Kim is "Say Goodbye to Hollywood," and it's way friendlier than the other ones are. So, and I love "Say." I think that's probably the best song on that album, or one of the best songs on that album.
Soldiers. Or I'm a Soldier.
Yeah, Soldiers good. Soldiers good too. Sing for the Moment's good. I mean that we'll get into that album again. I'm sure.
Till I Collapse, one of the best songs.
Yeah,
ever.
Till I Collapse is a great. And it ain't a hit till Nate Dogg spit. I mean, let's be honest. That's a great record too, great song too. So there's some. It's a little bit more user friendly, I guess, as it were. But I loved that album just as much.
Yeah, I think Eminem might be in the running for On Fire.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. There was 4 in a row. Infinite's great. Listen to Infinite. It's great.
Yeah.